Have you thought about why some people do not merely think sharply, but burn through their own thoughts? Why does the mind become critical, the emotions become reactive, and the whole personality begin to operate as if life is a battlefield that must be won? And is it possible that this pattern is not random at all, but deeply visible through the sixth house when Pitta increases? Today, you and I are going to deeply reflect upon a subtle but powerful teaching in Jyotish Ayurveda. Pitta in the sixth house as a mental and emotional force. This is not just about disease in the physical body. This is also about the psychology of imbalance. This is about how fire behaves when it enters the house of conflict, correction, hygiene, stress, service, immunity, and critical thought. The sixth house is classically linked with acute disease, hygiene, critical thoughts, spleen, small intestine, immune system, lower waist, lower back, lower spine, and adrenal response. But today, we are going one step deeper, because the slide brings our attention not only to bodily inflammation, but to mental expression and emotional expression. And this is where the teaching becomes incredibly relevant for healers, Ayurvedic physicians, astrology students, and modern spiritual practitioners. The slide tells us something very important. When Pitta increases in the sixth house, it inflames the immune and digestive axis, yes, but it also sharpens the inner instrument. The mind does not simply become intelligent, it becomes critical. And you need to understand the difference. Healthy discernment sees clearly. Inflamed discernment attacks. That is the first principle. In the mental field, this slide highlights that Pitta sharpens criticism into perfectionism, harsh self-judgment, judgment toward others, competitive thinking, and obsession with efficiency. Then it gives the core summary in one striking line. Thought becomes sharp but aggressive. Sit with that, because that one sentence explains the psychology of many highly functional but inwardly distressed people. They are not lacking intelligence, they are suffering from intelligence under heat. They are not lacking discipline, they are suffering from discipline without softness. They are not lacking standards, they are suffering from standards that have become hostile. This is exactly why the sixth house matters so much. The sixth house is where you confront disorder. It is where you try to solve problems. It is where you detect flaws, remove impurities, correct imbalances, manage enemies, and address weaknesses. So when Pitta, which is hot, sharp, penetrating, and inflammatory, enters this field strongly, the psyche starts relating to life through the lens of error detection and correction pressure. In balanced form, that can create clinical skill, healing precision, work ethic, discernment, and disciplined service. But when aggravated, it becomes something else. It becomes a mind that is always scanning for what is wrong. Wrong in the body, wrong in the routine, wrong in the environment, wrong in oneself, wrong in other people. And that is when the healer must become careful, because what looks like insight may actually be aggravated Pitta wearing the mask of intelligence. Now let us bring in the planetary symbols shown in the slide. The indicated grahas are Mars and the Sun. This matters tremendously, because in the broader planetary dosha framework, both Mars and Sun are Pitta grahas, each capable of intensifying heat, sharpness, inflammation, urgency, and aggressive metabolism. Mars brings force. Sun brings intensity and central authority. Mars acts like the inner warrior. Sun acts like the inner ruler. So when these forces are connected to the sixth house Pitta pattern, the person may begin to live psychologically, as if everything must be managed, solved, conquered, corrected, and controlled. Mars in this context can show argumentative reactions, irritability under pressure, confrontational thinking, impatience with inefficiency, and a tendency to respond to stress with attack energy. The Sun in this context can show strong self-expectation, pride around competence, intolerance of weakness, pressure to perform, and a difficulty relaxing control. So now ask yourself, is it possible that what appears to be a strong personality is actually a chronically inflamed coping style? Is it possible that what appears to be excellence is underneath a mind that has forgotten how to rest? This is the deeper teaching. The sixth house does not only show where you fight illness, it shows how you fight imperfection. And when Pitta rises here, that fight can become constant. That is why the emotional section of the slide is equally important. It lists irritability, anger under stress, frustration with inefficiency, conflict-driven behavior, reactive responses. And then it summarizes beautifully. Emotion becomes fiery and confrontational. This is such an important insight for anyone in healing work because many people with aggravated sixth house Pitta are not simply angry people. They are people whose emotional energy has become organized around correction, tension, urgency, and pressure. They may feel that if they do not react, everything will collapse. They may feel that if they are not sharp, nothing will improve. They may feel that softness is weakness and slowness is failure. But Ayurveda teaches us something profound. Fire is sacred when contained. Fire is destructive when excessive. So the question is not whether Pitta is bad. The question is whether your inner fire is serving digestion, perception, healing, and truth, or whether it is burning through your peace, your relationships, and your nervous system. And this is where the sixth house becomes both a challenge and a spiritual classroom, because the sixth house is the place where karma often arrives as routine, service, difficulty, discipline, stress, illness, and the need for correction. So if Pitta dominates this house, the soul may be learning one of the most difficult lessons of all: how to remain discerning without becoming condemning, how to remain efficient without becoming cruel, how to remain powerful without becoming inflamed, how to confront imperfection without declaring war on life. You need to deeply reflect upon that principle. This is not only a chart reading principle, it is a healing principle. It is a relational principle. It is a consciousness principle. For the Ayurvedic physician, this combination may correlate with the patient whose symptoms are not only inflammatory in the body, but also inflammatory in the personality expression. The digestion may run hot. The adrenals may be over-engaged. The immune system may react intensely. And the mind may mirror that same heat through criticism, speed, and intolerance. For the astrologer, this means never reading the sixth house only in physical terms. The sixth house also reveals the mind's conflict style, especially when connected to fiery grahas and strong Pitta signatures. For the new age healer, this opens a profound doorway, because many spiritual seekers are not blocked by lack of knowledge. They are blocked by inner combustion. They know what is right. They know what should be done. They know what is misaligned, but their knowing has become hot, forceful, and punishing. So let me say this clearly. Sixth house Pitta can make a person excellent at identifying problems, but not always excellent at creating peace. That is the imbalance. The mind becomes a courtroom. The emotions become a weapon. The body becomes a battlefield. The routine becomes a pressure chamber. And yet, in its higher expression, the same combination can produce a brilliant clinician, a precise diagnostician, a courageous reformer, a disciplined healer, and a person capable of cutting through confusion with tremendous power. So what determines the outcome? Balance. Not suppression of fire, but right use of fire. Not abandoning standards, but removing hostility from standards. Not losing precision, but bringing compassion into precision. Not becoming passive, but becoming regulated. This is where healing begins. You must learn when your criticism is wisdom and when it is inflammation. You must learn when your anger is clarity and when it is excess heat. You must learn when your efficiency is service and when it is fear wearing the mask of discipline. And if you do not learn this, the sixth house will keep teaching it through friction, through work stress, through body symptoms, through conflict, through digestive distress, through repeated irritation, through relationships that feel like contests rather than connection. That is why this teaching matters so much. In a world obsessed with productivity, performance, optimization, and constant correction, sixth house Pitta is everywhere. You can see it in the healer who overworks, the student who never feels good enough, the practitioner who judges others harshly, the perfectionist who cannot rest, the spiritually informed person who has become emotionally combative. So the medicine is not merely external, it is also internal. Cooling the body matters, but so does cooling interpretation, cooling speech, cooling expectation, cooling self-attack, cooling the compulsion to fight every flaw. Because sometimes the real disease is not only in the intestine or the immune system. Sometimes the real disease is that the mind has forgotten gentleness. And this is where the higher teaching of the sixth house appears. The sixth house is not here only to show what is broken. It is here to teach you how to work with imperfection without losing your center. That is mastery. So if you are listening as a healer, ask yourself, where has discernment in my life turned into harshness? If you are listening as an Ayurvedic physician, ask, where is inflammation not only somatic but psychological?